Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. A soccer podcast that probably won't last. Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme. Meet the Suckers and chat shit today.
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Please tell me you got that on Fiverr. You got that amazing jingle on Fiverr.
Oh yeah. Our podcast music designer is the same person I used for my improv podcast. Quite a deal. Incredible, recording.
Extremely
value.
good. Extremely way better than my old podcasts.
Schuyler actually got me on Fiverr. I had never met him before, and he said that he wanted someone to come and pretend to be a lifelong friend. And
perfect.
I've really gotten into the role, you know.
So is it 5 a day or is it 5 a friendship?
Yeah, I get 5, but I don't know what. It could be
Okay.
5 treasure boxes. It could be $5, 5 cents.
I pay you with 5 acts of friendship. Is that not it feels like it's like a solar energy kind of thing. It just sort of sustains itself.
That's actually a lot. 5 acts of friendship is, that's like a year of friendship with me. That's like what you get with the subscription.
I think I
Maybe
text you.
less.
I text you like a YouTube video. 1 act of friendship.
Yeah, all right. You get 5 memes, easy for me. But
All right. Should we quickly introduce our guest so that way we can hit the ground running?
yes,
Ben, would you like to say hello to our listener?
Sure. What's up, I'm Ben?
Ben,
aka Andre
introduce yourself.
Santos.
Well,
Yeah, aka Andre Santos. Since we are talking about soccer, I wouldn't say a lifelong Arsenal fan. I became a big Arsenal fan, and this is mostly probably for Jeff, but you'll relate to this to some degree, Schuyler. I played a lot of FIFA growing up, as every kid in America does.
right.
I got into Arsenal kind of, but I was more of a Juventus fan. And then when I was probably 22 or something, that was right when Arsenal was starting. They were like in that horrible transfer process of Cesc Fabregas going to Barcelona that lasted like 4 months, and it was hell. And I remember that experience just being like, "Damn, this is the same Arsenal that used to be like the dominators on FIFA? What happened?" And then it became this endearing oh man, these are like the ones that were, and now they're coming back, but maybe they will, but maybe they won't. And then the Arsene Wenger guy is this hero, but he's at the end of his rope, so I kind of caught him at that narrative time, and then I didn't miss a game until 3 years ago.
Wow.
Watched every Carling Cup / League Cup / what do they call it now? Whatever beer brand is now sponsoring
Carabao Cup.
The Carabao Cup.
Who could forget Carabao energy drinks?
Who could forget it? The Crypto.com Cup. And then I feel like I'm allowed to be an Arsenal fan now, and I can make fun of people who are just suddenly being like, I like Arsenal because they're really good. Be like, you bitches don't have any idea what the Benowin era was.
Of all the eras to follow them, granted, it was still the Champions League every year part of Arsenal, but is there any other stretch in Arsenal's history where we won less? I feel literally, if you had started in 1887 through when you started, you would have seen a more successful 15-year run.
And you know
I
what
have a
part
similar...
of it is? I think because I'm a Cleveland sports fan too. I'm like a big regional sports fan person.
You two are going to love each other.
I'm so used to the experience of this is objectively not our year. Holy shit, maybe this one tiny thing might finally... No, it won't. Actually, hold on, I'm going to take that back. And, you know what I mean? That happening, exactly, over and over and over and over again. So I think because of that, Arsenal, when I caught them, if I would have caught them a couple years before, then I probably would have thought of him the same way I think about the Yankees, where I would have been like, "Fuck Arsenal, I don't want to be a fan of that team, dude. Come on, no way, right?" But because I caught him when I did, it felt like I was being a fan of like the Cleveland Guardians or Indians or like the Browns or the Cavs or something, you know.
You like to
and then
buy low, sell low, just stay low.
Yes, exactly.
That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm similar. Like, I got into Arsenal, I'd say around the same time, but not like die hard. And it was sort of a slow burn until I wasn't like watching every match until like the 2012 season. But it's like very parallel where it's like had like that weird transfer thing with Van Persie over the summer when he was leaving.
Christ.
Where'd he go?
What a nightmare that was.
He went to some shit club up north. They might get relegated this year.
No argument.
But yeah, I mean, and for me, like I was a DC sports fan growing up. So like in a weird way, it actually felt like as much as everyone else was miserable, I was like, guys, we won like a lesser trophy and made it in like the top half of the league. Like so for me, it like weirdly felt like, I don't know, successful. So yeah, it was, as much as this was the most miserable period in the club's history, it was also the best, most fun I've ever had watching sports in any way.
I totally agree. I also feel like there's an element of, I think that Arsenal has even though there's a bazillion Arsenal fans, it's like obviously they're one of the biggest in the world, and there's tons of American Arsenal fans, it still feels like, generally speaking, other than Arsenal Fan TV, which obviously is its own problem, like there's like a good soul to the team. Like even looking at this transfer market this past year, or the transfer market ended, or the transfer window ended yesterday. Like seeing Aubameyang go to Chelsea, I'm kind of like, yeah, he's supposed to be at a place like that. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, and you look at Arsenal now, and you're just like, this team that we have that's what I want this team to look like, is a bunch of like humble, nice kids, no like weird, arrogant, insane celebrities, you know? And like our biggest celebrity is basically a weird kid anyway, you know, like Saka, just like a nice kid, you know? The Aubameyang thing does bum me out, don't get me wrong, but it definitely is like seeing him walk into the Chelsea like medical room or medical center or whatever, like just looking and dressed exactly like how like a superstar striker does. I was kind of like,
I think he's the only player we've ever had who has a mirror-plated Lamborghini. So you know what I mean? There's something to that. I'll ask you this, because for a while there, I'd say he was my favorite player at Arsenal, and like there were certain moments. I mean, there was a time where anytime he got the ball in the left wing, you just knew that he was going to cut back and curl it into the right corner. And then even beyond that, like there's all those like little moments of him like mentoring Saka, and like when he gave up the hat trick to let Lacazette have the penalty. You know what I mean? Like, and I loved him as a player, which is why I have his name on the back of my Bruised Banana 2.0 kit.
Amazing.
I thought that was going somewhere way differently. Like that's why I got his name tattooed on my Bruised Banana, and I'm like, Jeff,
that's just what I call.
It's a PGE thing.
My hand. No,
Disney can still buy this podcast. You've censored yourself appropriately.
Well, that would be somewhat appropriate. So, I mean, I guess the one question that I had for you, we can come back to it, is, can I ever wear that again? But the second question is, can we at least take some sort of moral victory out of the fact that he has an Arsenal tattoo and he's now going to play for Chelsea?
Dude, for sure. And like this is I think the thing about the club, and maybe I'm being delusional, I don't think I am, but like a lot of players who have gone elsewhere talk very favorably of Arsenal afterwards, no matter what. And like I don't think Aubameyang is going to be throwing Arsenal under the bus. I think that, because I agree with you, I loved Aubameyang. It reminds me a lot of that one year when Ozil was like a creation machine, but like nobody could put anything in the back of the net. So he was just like he was just creating chances left and right. But then his assists like could have been triple, right? And Aubameyang like kept us alive. Van Persie kept us alive that one year, right?
Yeah, he's one of the people who had us. He was like one of our life support machines over the last 10 years.
For sure. And and I think that's been the interesting thing about Arsenal, is like we've had legitimate life support machines, right? And I think that's
Individual
part of
player.
dude,
Cess was
individual
one of them,
players.
to what
That's
your
what's
point
on
was
exactly.
earlier.
And I think that's kind of what makes this era feel interesting. Is that like I don't look around and see like, I mean, other than maybe Jesus right now, because he's just like, he's new, he's a fun shiny object, he's obviously very very good, but like there's not really a life support player. Like it's a very complete, pretty balanced squad, generally speaking, which I think is again like the way I am looking at this currently is it reminds me of that first 2 years of when like Klopp finally had Liverpool in order, where you were just like,
Yeah.
oh shit, this is a good team. Wow, you know, because those couple of years you were like, damn, he did it. He actually took this horrible thing. Because, dude, remember how fucking bad
After
Liverpool
finishing
was?
like 7th or whatever
Yeah.
it was that first year.
Totally. And
When
then he came back and brought it.
What I'm hearing is a little bit like, so I did a self-tape audition the other day, and it's reminding me a lot of like early Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm feeling like I think that
I thought you were gonna say I did a self-tape audition the other day. It reminded me a lot of Tommy Lee on his honeymoon.
Yeah, that's my season. We'll get to that. But so now that we've kind of like, I don't know, gotten to know each other and done a little foreplay, I would love to let's jump to a new surprise topic that I want to ask you guys both. Transfer market, grade yourself. So with what your team did do, didn't do, ingoings, outgoings, loans, all that, just what is your sense of things? Give yourself like a letter grade and let's talk about it.
I think we were like A to A plus until literally the day of the transfer window, and then we kind of came down to like an A minus because
the deadline day.
Yeah, the deadline day, because like David, what's his name? David
Luiz. Yeah,
Douglas
we've had
Luiz?
David Luiz too.
Which one is it? The Douglas Luiz transfer moment. It was interesting because it was like, you know, we do this at Arsenal where we kind of go, all right, we're gonna get rid of Pepe. Yeah. We're not gonna replace him though, and we're kind of like, okay, are you sure? All right, are you sure? Okay, yeah. So
the Douglas
I don't
Luiz
think
thing. It's smacked of like it's hard to hit on someone after you just broke up with your girlfriend in front of them. You know what I mean? Like
for sure, dude.
It's like it was like we really weren't in for him at all this entire window until like suddenly we've had like a couple center midfielders get hurt, and then suddenly we're like, hey. And it was like, I think he absolutely made the right call for his career of like, no way, because like in like a month, I'm going to be back up to Party, El Nene, and Zinchenko, and Sambi. Like,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, that would be a horrible idea.
Wait, it was the player rejecting? I thought it was agreement.
It was Brendan Rodgers who was the one who was ultimately rejecting. Or not Brendan Rodgers, Stevie G. Stevie G was the one who was rejecting because it was like, I mean, Aston Villa's in bad shape.
Rodgers should have had nothing to do with this.
I know.
He's a good player,
He's like, now, fellas, I'm gonna step in here. This is Brendan Rodgers talking. I'm not letting this go through.
That was my Stevie G not wanting to let him go. I'm sorry. I went with the literal narrative.
Yes, the imaginary narrative. But yeah, I mean, to your earlier question, like grading the transfer market, I mean. It like Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus. I mean, I know it's not a new, but like Saliba obviously coming into the squad. It's like it's pretty hard to not be like to think we flubbed anything in particular.
I mean, that's 3 guys that are just like rock solid locks in the starting 11 of a team 100%. That was already not like we didn't finish the season in an awful state by any means.
No.
So yeah,
for sure. And like the fact that now, you know, like Ben White is pushed on the right. So we got Tommy as the backup. And then on the left, we have fucking Tierney, man. And Tierney was like the guy. Like he, if anybody was a life support of the last couple of years, it was probably Tierney of all people.
Yeah.
And so I think now that we're seeing like Zinchenko and Tierney battling it out, I'm just like, I mean, that's my big question. Like Schuyler and I were talking about this leading up to this conversation about this weekend playing United. Like it feels like it's the interesting depth conversation where we're going to go, cool, okay, so how reliant are we on Ben White? How reliant are we on keeping Shaka in a forward position versus like really anchoring the back of the midfield, right? Which we know he's kind of been forced to do a couple times, but lately he's been playing more forward and it's been like paying massive dividends.
Yeah.
So now we get to just see what that actually feels like, and if we move Zinchenko into the midfield and we let Tierney run left. I mean, so yeah, I think I can't say we have anything less than an A-, and that's almost like, trying to throw a Hail Mary when you're already up by 20 and like getting it intercepted with no time left. You know what I mean? You're
These are very Arsenal metaphors, by the way. It's like you're God, I guess, is how I feel, or like you're like God's boss, Jack.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think there's so much in soccer that is like, it comes down to timing more than results. Sure. Like if you've ever celebrated like, and we all have, of like that last minute equalizer, but then like afterwards you sort of think about it and you're like, well, I don't know. Now that I think about it, like all we did was tie against a team we probably should have beaten, and I think like weirdly, imagine if Jesus and/or Zinchenko and/or, we haven't even talked about Vieira, who's like a $30 million player that they brought in. If we had closed some of these deals late in the window, then people would be celebrating. But it's like, but that's actually a worse outcome than what we did, which is get our ducks in order really early, bring in players so they had like a true preseason. A lot of them, I mean, both Jesus and Zinchenko, they look like they've been playing here for years already. Like they do not stand out at all. I mean, Saliba's in that same boat, even though, like you said, it's kind of a different situation transfer wise. Like, I think that it's about as good of a window as you can have. But I also, I mean, the one thing that I'll always say as like the sort of stick in the mud is I think we overrate the importance of the transfer window at times, where it's like every club is out. If all that mattered was the transfer window, then Manchester United would be the best team in the history of soccer right now, because you guys have spent 1.1 billion in the last couple of years, and
it doesn't. Your dinner is gonna be just as good whether you pay $10,000 for it or $20 for it. You'd rather pay $20 for it, it's. Yeah. And I feel like spending in the transfer market, necessary spending is good. Spending because you're an idiot.
Don't talk about spend. Talk about necessary spend.
Yeah. That was that like, what was it? 50 Cent? Who are you doing?
Some Arsenal fan TV guy. Do you know that meme?
Oh, really?
Don't talk about spend. Talk about net spend, bro. Like, which is like the fakest stat of like net spend that you just made that up, dude. Like, it's not a real thing. It's much more
people get all bent out of shape when we like when you let players go for free or cheap or whatever. Everybody's just like, everybody points at Chelsea for that, right? Everybody's kind of like, holy shit, you guys, sold Lukaku for X, bought Lukaku for Y, then sold him again for X, and so it's like the net spend ends up being lower. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting having this conversation with another Arsenal fan and just like thinking about the Arsenal transfer window, because this year it's like we've been validated in our decisions. Last year it was interesting because we had made all these transfers that, like, for the first 3 games or the first 6 games or whatever, people were just like, holy shit, what were they thinking? 30 million for this guy named Aaron Ramsdale. What's an Aaron Ramsdale, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now people are like, oh, okay, Edu knows what he's doing. Yeah. Like, even though we don't know who Fabio Vieira is, or like Zinchenko wasn't getting a lot of time at Man City, like the narrative, I think, is actually piggybacking on last year, understanding that when they make these decisions, it's actually very intelligent, football-minded, Mikel Arteta philosophy decisions, not like who's available and expensive and we can get now,
Which is the Manchester United way right now.
Man City, Manchester United. I mean, Man City's a little different because they're fucking icons at this point, but like Man U and Chelsea, absolutely.
Ben gave Arsenal, I think it was an A- minimum grade. Jeff, did you give an actual grade?
I'll give him just a straight up A.
Wow. Season's over.
But, well, it's funny. I mean, because maybe it'll go the other way, though. This time last year, when everyone was second guessing the transfers, we had been 0-3 to start the year,
100%.
losing 3 in a row. now we're 5-0. There may be a slight chance that
You
we're
have
overrating.
data.
You know, like if Jesus ever stops walking on water, then
Nice.
we'll all have eggs on our face.
Yeah. Well, or like, Fabio Vieira ends up being like a really like maladapted midfielder.
Yeah.
Then people are going to be like 30 million for this chump. Why? Right.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, even now, like, I don't know how much you're watching all the loan stuff, but like, dude, Tavares is like destroying France right now.
Yeah. Man, it's a really tough name. It's a double diamond name. It's a Balogun.
Oh,
Balogun. He's potentially young American. Maybe. I don't think he declared it yet, did he?
I'm not sure.
I thought he had, but that might be wishful thinking. But I think he has 4 goals, 2-1 penalties. Like he's insane. Like he's like, I think he might be close to leading the French league in scoring right now.
Crazy.
Where's he playing?
Reims. Yeah, I don't know how you say that.
One of those.
It's like Leanne Rimes owns the French League One club, and it's all country. All right. Well, and neither of you asked me, but I'll tell you how I grade Manchester United's transfer window.
We were getting to that.
D plus. Yeah.
What did we spend like the revenue for Exxon Valdez or whatever? Like, but I think it was so poorly spent in a value for dollars perspective. Like, I think I can't argue with any of the players we got except maybe Dubravka on loan, which I don't understand. Why don't you? Do you want to have a keeper that beats out De Gea and maybe can play with his feet? Don't just get a shitter version of the same exact goalkeeper from Newcastle bench. But they're all good players. But like Antony could have been had for like 50 million euros 2-3 months ago.
Yeah,
it's when all right. This is a good metaphor. When I was in Boston in college, and it would get really hot in Boston over the summer. If you didn't have an air conditioning unit, there was like a week when all of a sudden it was 91 and everyone's like Black Friday stabbing each other to get air conditioning units out of a Sears. In this case, it's the same thing with transfers. There were 2 strikers for sale all summer that were of any quality, and they went to City and Liverpool respectively right away. And so I feel like by the Glazers kind of sitting around saying, maybe we can just spend nothing. Maybe no one will notice if we just have no team.
Yeah.
And then we lost 2 matches, and the protests explode, and the Jim Ratcliffe potential buying stories explode, and suddenly they spend 70 million on Casemiro and up to 100 million on Antony. That reeks to me of, oh fuck, I shat my pants. I guess I have to buy these Armani pants so I have pants to walk around in.
Well, and that honestly, that's the way I think about the Man U spending habit. And you got a little bit with Chelsea, but Chelsea's like they always do that. But
they don't have the same rules we have. They have a bank account that's Dogecoin.
Yeah, and I think that Arsenal and Man U, for whatever reason, are very much like this, where like the narrative of the moment dictates the decisions that have to be made to accommodate it. Like Wenger was classic for this. It was always like on deadline day, we'd be like, we have horrible midfield depth, and all of a sudden, it'd be like deadline day, Mikel Arteta from Everton, and we're just like, what?
Little did he know that would resonate forever.
But it's like that was always a thing. I was so used to that happening, and like, even I mean, to some degree, Ozil was like that. I think Ozil was different because he was like Ozil, and it became like this icon of the club. But at the same time, it was still like on Madrid. It was but on deadline day, it was just like, cool, we're gonna get the guy, and you're just kind of like, but we've never gotten the guy, and everybody's mad at Arsenal, huh? Well,
you probably, I know that Bendre Santos remembers this, but I'll ask Schuyler first. Do you know who our record signing was before Ozil?
Before Ozil, no, my brain just jumped to Pepe, but of course he's after. Sanchez?
It's a tough one. No, because that was also after. But
wait, Sanchez was after. Okay, I put them together. It was almost like the same.
It was like a year after, I think. I could be wrong, but I know it wasn't Sanchez.
Arshavin?
Yes. Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good
That's
for
pretty
somebody
good.
else's club. And do you?
Yes.
I won't put you on the spot for this, but it was 15 mil was our record signing at the time.
Totally.
And so
smashed it.
Like,
Jesus.
Like 40
that was
million,
the kind of club. I mean, granted, like if you inflation adjust for like the inflation of the soccer market, like 15 mil back in the day used to buy you quite a bit. Like I think we bought Bergkamp for like 8, you know.
Yeah,
but
totally. Jerry was 11, I think.
It's half a Rooney. It was half a Rooney.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, like even still, like we went from 15. I think we paid like 45 for Ozil, and like yeah,
and just kind of kept going up since. I mean, you know, like, but even like the Pepe one was like, I remember when Pepe happened. I think all of, I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself, but I imagine this is like the consensus with Arsenal fans. I was like, I don't really know who this guy is, but like Arsenal's never spent 70 on anything. Holy shit.
Yeah,
I
like
guess
if we're
celebrate.
doing it,
Yeah,
right.
Like,
he must be Messi.
Yeah. Honestly, like that was kind of the thing. It was just like a celebration. Anybody know this guy? I guess we'll celebrate. You know, and
yeah, I thought that for sure. And then he was one of those guys where like because I don't watch Ligue 1, so like you know what I mean. Like unless you're like Mbappe or somebody, I haven't heard of you. And then I saw him. I looked at his stats. I'm like, oh, he scored like 20 goals. He's like 22. Right. And then the real kicker is you watch his highlight reel, and he's the epitome of like a highlight reel player because he has these incredible like cinematic shots when they go in. He has, you know, like he can dribble past anyone. And I was like, oh, wow, like we did it. And that was at the time. I tried to make this reference the other day and I couldn't remember the name of the guy. But, you know, Mbappe had just sold for like 100 mil. And then I think like a season later from the same club, like the guy that had been like kind of his strike partner, Thomas Lamar. I couldn't remember that name. I wanted to say Kendall Lamar. Yeah, like he went for 100, maybe even more than 100. And
110,
did nothing. Yeah. Like I think he scored like 2 goals ever or something like that. Probably. I mean, whereas like the thing about Pepe, say what you will about him, he wasn't worth 72 million, but like he had like years at the club as a useful squad player. You know what 100%. I mean? Like he had like some key goals for us. Even like he had like some nice moments. So it was like, I mean, it's a flop. I'm not saying it's not a flop, but it wasn't as bad as Thomas Lamar.
I'm smiling.
Well, I mean, he's a flop. He's like an inflated. We had a crony running the fucking back office flop. Not like if we would have got him for 35 and he would have done what he did, I'd be like, all right, like Mustafi was for like 25. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, all right, like Pepe for 35, 40. I'm like, cool, that makes sense. Pretty good, right?
I'd like to point out 2 things, actually. One, this topic is transfer market grade yourself, and 2 Arsenal fans have found a way to Kevin Bacon their way back to Pepe. It's like such a self-harming tendency.
You won. It's in the 27th minute, Pepe was mentioned.
Yeah.
And speaking of, so we're like almost halfway through the podcast. We are on the second bullet of 8 or 9. So I might want to move us along, but the next bullet's just going to be more of you guys talking because.
Wait, really fast. Give me your grade. You never gave us your definitive grade, and then we'll move on. We won't commentate. Yeah, we won't commentate. We'll just say what your grade was, and we'll move on.
I mean,
I'm having you grade the Arsenal transfer market.
No.
I'm kidding. All right,
I would say all the players we got were great, but we had, 14 holes in the squad, so it still feels insufficient. It still feels like, the house is on fire. I made sure to save all of the forks and knives. Like, it's like that kind of thing. We're like, or maybe that's not even a good metaphor, but it felt like we only
the house is on fire. I went to Target and bought a nice set of forks and knives.
So we have something to eat with in our new homelessness situation. No, but it feels like we've solved some of the problems, but not enough of them to get Champions League football, which is probably why we were spending all that money to try and be competitive for 4th. I still think we're going to finish in roughly the same position we finished in last year, even with the improvements, because everybody's improved. Like Arsenal has improved just by virtue of younger players getting better, then plus those couple of additions. Like it's inarguable. City are changing, but clearly still very good. Liverpool looked shitty for like a week, and it was a great week. But then they had a 9-0. So I still think it's like not enough, and I still think Glazers out is really the only good grade I could give. Like anytime I can say that phrase. But that said, it's my perspective on this team has changed a lot. Jeff will agree. It's been like feeling good about it, feeling bad about it, feeling dead about it, and I'm still kind of feeling dead about it.
I'm going to give you guys a C- for all those reasons.
Oh, well, good. That's a passing grade. We can go to college.
I thought you were going to say a D for dead.
A D for get out, Glazers. So Arsenal versus Aston Villa midweek game. What happened for those of me that didn't watch?
Those of me who didn't watch.
For those of Schuyler that didn't watch, I did watch. It's an interesting one. Both games this week had a similar feeling of last year we would have lost, or last 100%. Year we would have dropped points.
Last decade we would have dropped. We would have lost.
Right, where it's like even though we were like pretty much in control of both games, more or less the entire time.
Right.
Like there's always that weird like slip on a banana peel moment. In the previous game it had been Gabriel sort of coughing up the ball to Mitrovic in front of our goal, and then he scored. Yep. In this game we probably should have been 3 or 4 goals 100%. Ahead in that first half. We had like just insane chances generated, big chances too, and we were 1-0 up, and then suddenly they equalize on away, and we got to talk about that equalizer.
Dude,
but
it's so ridiculous
because apparently you're just allowed to wrestle the goalie now. And also allowed to wrestle our forwards too. Schuyler, it's not Schuyler, Saka.
I didn't do it.
Saka literally got like suplexed, and they just sort of were like, and then they went to VAR and they're like, we're just allowing suplexes now in the box. But I'm rambling a bit, but and as soon as they scored, it was like everyone knew, the team, the fans, everybody was just like, no, that's not going to stand. And then what was it, 3 or 4 minutes later? Martinelli, I think.
Martinelli. Yeah, I mean, you're right. They're very interesting games. I think on the surface. So I think there's 2 things that happened, right? So one being we got scored on, we came back and we won, which was rare. And our Arsenals of past have not really done that. Even when it's like, we know we need to, it is a little bit of the like pass the ball around the box and just see what happens and wait for something. Right now, it's a lot more like aggression. We're doing it, yada, yada, yada. I mean, the other thing, though, that's interesting is we didn't really – I have a feeling this week will be the week that we give up a real goal, because both of those goals didn't feel like they were real goals. They felt like they were emotional gaps. Yeah. I think that, the Gabriel, the Gabriel, our defensive Gabriel, of our multitude of Gabriels, our defensive.
Gabby 3.
Yeah,
you're Gabrielis. I think they're called Gabrielis.
That's what they are. So that one I think was a mistake that sometimes center backs make. That if you make it too many times, then you get accused of being Mustafi. This is just like an elite center back who made a mistake, and so be it. Can't really do anything about it. The one this week was like if we had lost that, it would have been like the topic of the month, because it was just like such an outrageous missed call. I will say Ramsdale's interesting because he's very solid, but he also still has a little bit of a ways to go. Like he's still things like that. Like there's certain keepers that's not going to happen to them. You know what I mean? Like it's not happening to like the elite keepers of the world. They don't let that shit happen, right? Now, granted, that was also a defensive error because somebody should have been getting the near post as well, and there wasn't really anybody on the near post. But it was also like clearly that's illegal, etc. But all that said, again, it's our resolve coming back and taking it. And part of it was like stop fucking around, because we should have been up dramatically and we just weren't in both games. But but you're right. I mean, like we wouldn't have done that in previous games. I think that Martinelli is like. I think he is the one on our team. It reminds me a little bit of Saka 2 years ago, probably, where everybody, like the whole soccer world collectively, is going like, "Damn, you guys seeing this kid?
Yeah,
the Martinelli guy's really good." Yeah, and so right now we're kind of in that zone with Martinelli where he just like he's where he needs to be. I mean, did you see that fucking volley that he almost scored? Oh my god, dude! If that would have gone in, that would have been like, I mean, he would have added 10 million pounds to his transfer value immediately.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was an insane one. I mean, you can't hit it any better than that, and the fact that Emi Martinez, former Arsenal player, blocked that is just. I don't know. It's just unacceptable.
It's very poetic. Yeah, it's totally unacceptable. But but like that kind of stuff. I think we're now, we're just at a place where I feel like we are even when we have played well over the last couple of years, I don't think we were a fearable team. And I feel like now we are a team that, we're not feared in the way that like a Man City is feared, where you just kind of go like, we're all children, these are men. This is the best football team that anybody's ever seen.
Or a Mason Greenwood is feared, like similar level of fear.
Yes, totally. But I think we have a thing now where it's just like, oh damn, this team is not a pushover, and they're not like. I mean, I read the other day. I think Ramsdale was on the Men in Blazers podcast, I think yesterday, or no, it was Zinchenko talking to Fabrizio Romano, and he was saying how I think that the Arsenal team they have the most distance on the field of any team right now as well. So they're just like running their asses off constantly. Like they just wear teams out. People know they're going to wear a team out. And I just feel like they're a dangerous team now. And I think that that's part of why I think about them a little bit in the same canon as Liverpool from those early years, where like all of a sudden you were like, damn, this Liverpool team is like even the players that are supposed to be scrubs are like really difficult to play against. Milner and Schuyler.
It has that
I think
same
those are like the same thing.
Ish energy of
100%.
Like, we're just not settling for any sort of, like even like early on in the game, Martinelli lost the ball and then ran back, kind of like lapped his man and stole the ball back and like passed it and sort of recycled it, and like that's just not something you saw very often from Gervinho,
No, of course. Well, and just remember how those early like elite Liverpool club teams, like the first 20 minutes, they were absolute assassins, dude. Like they were so aggressive. They were pressing so aggressively. They were so offensively minded. And I feel like that was the thing that was so interesting about that team, is like, you just like the first couple of minutes, you're just like, dude, this is like an assault. Like we're rattled. We don't know what to do. And like Arsenal's kind of doing that, but doing it in the Arsenal way, which is like passing very progressively, getting it upfield, not really running at players as much as just like creating space, finding the space, filling the space, and then taking shots. So
I think I might need to stop this runaway freight train of a conversation. I feel like the Jewish kid in a Catholic school on like explain your family's religion day, where I'm like, so
what did you do on your winter vacation?
I'm so sorry. Can I talk about Hanukkah for 1 minute before we get back to all the Christmas festivities?
Yeah. Please tell me about the 1-0 win that you guys had over the weekend.
The second consecutive clean sheet we've had, which
okay.
I think what? It depends. Everything's relative, right? Like if your life's been going great, a good day probably you don't notice it. But when your life has been nothing but like broken clavicles and flea infestation, Manchester United, you're like 2 clean sheets in a row is the
just
same.
For example, that's not anyone's biography.
Yeah, that's like you haven't made out with someone on a date in like 6 months, and then you do, and it's not the person you maybe wanted to make out with, but you made out with someone, so you still kind of have it. And that's what a 1-0 win against Leicester is for me. It's like, okay, sturdy. And it's relevant to the next conversation we're going to have, which is about the El Meet the Sacarico Derby, which is coming up this weekend. But basically, it's like Ten Hag has fixed our defense. That's the only undeniable thing that I can tell from the first 5 matches, or however, I guess 5 matches. Like, first 2 matches were the old defenders that weren't going to fit into a pressing system, like Maguire and Shaw with his, half of a football brain kind of thing he's got going on.
Right.
And then the midfield, still a work in progress, but in improvement. Now we just don't have anybody to kick the ball into the goal.
We need that.
But so that's all I'm going to say. Very quick, very brief summary of a 90-minute match. It was just as long as your match. But they really didn't threaten us very much, which maybe also is indicative of where Leicester is in the table right now.
Yeah,
but we would have lost this match last year. We would have lost 2-1.
Well, and I mean, to your point, like that kind of feels like how we felt about Arsenal last year, where like defense was pretty solid most of the time. We were really feeling like, damn, this is really starting to come together in a really good way. But like we were just we had no offensive option. And that was what made our winter transfer window so like horrifying, is when we like got rid of the one person who theoretically was supposed to be a really, really good option who was just going through a bad spell. And then suddenly we were just like, oh my God, like we've gone from like not having good options to not having any options. But that was, I think, that created the beginning of our movement towards what we have now, which is like a really dynamic offense in theory that doesn't over rely on the back. For sure. And so I feel like that's, and and if we keep using Liverpool, like Van Dijk transformed that team from like the back forward, right? And I know that he hasn't been playing his best this year, but like that was the thing that turned Liverpool into a really dominant squad, was like a really solid leadership core in the back.
And something that I was really hoping you guys, Manchester United, would not figure out until after this week, because when you were completely falling apart early in the year, those first couple games, I was thinking, please just last a few more games, because I knew that we played you guys early, and I knew that we played you guys early away, so I was hoping you'd be in shambles. Now I feel like we're playing a team that is suddenly stout defensively at Old Trafford. I'm not so sure I like those. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be a tough game. When I was if you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would think that we would be the heavy favorites, but I don't think so anymore.
I'll still give you slight favorites though, because even though I would say Arsenal's opening schedule hasn't been that brutal, 15 points out of 15 points, like how much more could you ask for? Like no one else has done that. Sure. So all right, let's just do it then. Let's jump into it. We've got our United v Arsenal ticker up. I think something we can all agree on. Doesn't it feel nice that this feels like a big game for the first time in like a couple years? Like it's felt like one of us has been pathetic, or both of us have been pathetic during our meetups. And Arsenal is definitely ahead of United on the reboot calendar. But what we've got is like, I would say Arsenal, very solid defense, very good attack. So, to my eyes, early in the season. United, very good defense, very meh attack. So really kind of almost how is this game going to go? Well, it's like, how is it going to be played? Is it going to be Arsenal with more than 50% possession in Old Trafford? If anything, I think if that's happening, it actually favors United, because I feel like United can score goals on the counterattack, and we can't score goals in the slow build-up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the injuries are going to be an interesting factor here, because I think that we are facing a couple people potentially out, or at the very least, like on the fringes, that have been good. And I know we mentioned this at the beginning of the pod, where it's like, what depth do we really have? Like when Ben White is playing on the right side, like how important has he really been, and is something that Tommy can be a really valuable understudy for? Or not, I don't know. Like we watched last week, like there's a very distinct difference between Tierney and Zinchenko on the left, and like not to say that Tierney is obviously not doing a great job, because he's an amazing player, but like the game just changes because Zinchenko just does a different thing and opens up a different way of playing on the kind of the left back time. And I think Ben White's going to be a really interesting factor on that, because I think we've seen a similar thing. Like he's a very progressive right back, and I don't know if Tommy does quite the same thing. Also, the communication issues are very different, that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to be an interesting factor. Another subplot to the whole, like, it's been a long time since we've seen this kind of rivalry happen. This also might be one of those Old Trafford is a bad place to play for an away team kind of game,
a bad place to visit for a home fan as well.
Exactly. But that's what
place.
That's a bad place. So that's one of the things that everybody's saying about the Emirates right now too, is like the Emirates is like as alive and as intimidating as it's ever been, like old Highbury days. And I know the last couple of years people have been like Old Trafford, it's kind of felt a little bit more like they're hostile towards Man United more than they are hostile towards the away team. I don't know if that's ever truly been the case for Arsenal, because Arsenal games are always a little bit heavy duty, but I think this is going to be one of those, like, how young is our team really mentally when you go into a place like Old Trafford and, like, Emile Smith Rowe, Martinelli. I don't think Saka's is as victim to it necessarily, but like we got young kids in the team who were like that cacophonous noise is not easy,
That noise, it's Casemiro.
Wait, is he? Are all your new signings fit for this game?
Casemiro just got a half on Thursday, I think, with the idea of starting him on Sunday, which I think is smart, needing that extra defensive sturdiness, and he had some good passing too, so I feel like he'll be a net positive. Anthony is probably just going to be like a 20-minute cameo at most. He's only gotten 2 days of training, and I suspect one of those
will even appear at all. That's
I think he'll sub. But from familiarity with the system, it's really like when you show up on your first day of training, it's like how good is your cardio? If your cardio is good, he on a wing, he already knows how to press in the system. He's a tricky dude. You just maybe put him out there for 20 minutes, and maybe he makes something happen towards the end. But yes, I would say largely everyone's fit, but also everyone's played all, like, except for the first two matches, which had your Shaws and your Maguires and your Ronaldo starting. It's been like the same group like the last couple in a row. They might be exhausted from a Thursday, Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, right? I mean, we did Wednesday. This is going to be two exhausted teams that are going to be like maybe you could argue Arsenal is in the driver's seat because they're like, we're 5-0, like we lose.
Confidence high. Confidence is very high.
The confidence is high, and also like, there's just a different energy when you're like been getting your ass kicked, and all of a sudden you have a little bit of win, and you're just there's a different tension, right? I don't know if that tension. Exactly. And so I don't know if the Arsenal tension is quite the same thing as the Man United tension in this capacity. So I think that's going to be a really interesting plot to watch. I think it's going to be another interesting thing that should be paid attention to is like, what is Saka right now? Because some people would say he's not having a good season. I think that's untrue. I think it's more that the balance of credit and the balance of attention has been really spread this year. Last year, I think Saka was another. For a while.
He was a life support machine.
He was a life support machine. So I think that now, since so much stuff is running through the left, I think that Saka has been a little bit of like odd man out. But this might be one of those games where all of a sudden we're really incorporating Saka more. I think Sambi Lokonga is going to be an interesting plot line because he's like kind of the midfielder right now.
He's what's left, and it's interesting because I really think that if Zinchenko was healthy, that Zinchenko might have been getting the start because he also plays in that defensive mid role, and obviously they love him. And then, the guy that's sitting behind him, Tierney, as you mentioned, is pretty damn good at playing left back. So, maybe they prefer having Tierney on the left, Zinchenko in the middle, because he kind of ends up playing there. He
does the triangle with Gabby, and
they use him sort of differently, so it would work. But I think Saka is a big one for this game. I wonder about that, and I think we have basically not seen any changes to the starting 11 that weren't because of injury so far this season, and now coming off a midweek game. I think we're going to have to start rotating the squad a bit. I mean, there's some players that I really just want to see. I'd really like to see Smith Rowe. I'd really like to see what we have in Vieira. And then there are other guys like, Sambi Lokonga. I still think there was a point where people were writing him off, but I think we saw enough of him last year to think he's a real talent, and I'd like to see
him
too. I think maybe that's one sort of silver lining to having both Party and El Neni out of the lineup is that, Sambi Lakonga needs some minutes.
That's very Arsenal. That's very Arsenal. Yeah. It's a good thing we have all these injuries.
I know. I mean, I do think that they're like the Sambi Lakonga thing. You're right. Like, I have zero interest in writing him off. He's a young player. He's not like Arsenal fans are just so fickle about midfielders, man. Like, we get so bent out of shape about midfielders that are not flashy. And, because, Granit Xhaka is a great example where, like, yes, he's made some mistakes, but he's always been a consistent, pretty good midfielder. Sometimes he's elite. Sometimes he's just, like, pretty good.
Sometimes he's red carded. Yeah.
Sometimes he gets red carded. But there's a part of the Arsenal fan base who thinks he's, like, he's another Mustafi, right? And, like, it's just as irresponsible. So I think that, like, Sambi Lakonga, it's going to be really interesting to see how he progresses, what he does. He probably is going to be more of an El Neni than he is a Partey or something, or an Odegaard, where, like, he just is really good, really consistent, really helps, but is not, like, is often overlooked, isn't, like, the most dynamic player in the world. I am very curious if Fabio Vieira gets some time this game, because he hasn't been out there yet.
Five subs, use some of them, Arteta.
Totally. Well, also, it's like, I don't know if, like, I know the Fabio Vieira thing. I think he doesn't speak English very well or at all, I believe. I think that they may be just, like, trying to get him up to communication standards. I could be wrong, but I remember somebody in our team was having an issue like that. But again, it's one of those things, like, especially if Odegaard is injured, right? Which there's also a potentially he might be injured.
Yeah. You don't know? You don't know if he's hurt?
Well, who practiced it? I think Ramsdale and Zinchenko were practicing with the first team today, I think. So I know they are at least close. I think Odegaard,
Arteta plays the information very close to his chest about injuries.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. Like, it'll be a surprise on game day.
Yeah.
But then they could still play and still be injured, and you still wouldn't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to. I mean, somebody like Odegaard, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be playing if he's injured. I mean, he puts in a lot of mileage. Like, he's one.
And he gets kicked a lot. Like, it's not
a lot. Yeah. So
that would be a huge change in the team if we had.
Huge.
Like, if we had Smith Rowe or somebody else having to play as the number 10, or
Vieira
starting, that would be
that'd be wild.
Old Trafford.
Well, but Vieira is more of a box to box, right? He's not really a traditional center attacking, or is he?
I have no idea. I've never seen a minute of it. I get the impression that he's a bit more of attacking. I've even heard that he goes out to the wing, but I do think he's a bit of an anomaly, which is why they like him.
Yeah.
Is there any player that is like a single? Is there any Man United player that you feel like is like a singular story in this game?
De Gea.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of a nice pivot to me wanting you guys to put your predictions down. But my prediction is a 1-1 draw. And I feel like, and again, this is not a slight to you, but, like, I feel like the goal that we concede to you is going to be something that has me mad as fuck. And so I'm, in my brain, thinking it's going to be like something where De Gea passes the ball straight to, like, a striker or winger, and it's a tap in. And it'll be like it'll shut me up. Like, that's exactly what I'm estimating will happen. What do you... Try to keep it to, like, a prediction. Try not to go back through the Arsenal roster 3 or 4 more times in this one. But, like,
it's hard because I love them all so much.
I know, and this is a match made in hell with you two. But like, say a score, say what happens.
I'll go 2-1 to the Arsenal. 1 goal because De Gea slips on a banana peel. 1 goal because one of our players slips on a banana peel, and Saka with the game winner shut everyone up.
At the end, like at the very end, or is it settled earlier?
I don't know, like 85th minute or something. Not the very, very end, but end.
So I'm debating on my Arsenal Vietnam flashbacks prediction versus my optimistic. I'll give you two then. So I'll give my Arsenal Vietnam flashback is I think it ends up being 2-0 to the Man United, and we have a couple key injuries out, and Ronaldo scores the second goal.
Mm.
Which would feel very, very old Arsenal style.
That's a helicopter going overhead right now, and I'm here. Yeah, so yes.
But is that not what you actually think will happen, Ben?
Well, I think that's a string theory dual paths of existence here. I think there's very possible
one or the other, right?
One of the other.
Schrodinger's Arsenal result.
Schrodinger's Arsenal result. I also think it's very possible that it ends up being. I think the big plot is Old Trafford. I think Old Trafford's atmosphere is going to be another player.
And you think the Arsenal players will be intimidated by "We want Glazers out, we want Glazers out"? You think that's going to be making a dent?
Let's see if and when that happens, right? Because my other prediction would be either 3-0 or 3-1 to the Arsenal, and it would just feel like Arsenal is actually a legitimate, good, real team. It's holy shit. They can't be. They got to be taken seriously. Damn, that was a bloodbath. And then it's kind of like it ends up being like 2-0 after going into halftime. A third comes at like the 83rd minute from like one of our subs, and then the game ends with a chorus of boos, and Arsenal's like celebrating subtly but flamboyantly as Rebecca Lowe talks about Arsenal being a legitimate contender with the two Robbies.
It's funny how like this match. Like I think 1-1's likely because I view us as, even if you have a little bit better form than us, and I would say even a little bit better squad depth, even if it's depleted now. Like 1-1 to me feels like cosmically fair. It wouldn't make me happy. It wouldn't make you guys happy.
Yeah.
So
it depends on what it looks like, right? I mean, if it's cosmically fair, but it's like I don't want to see an Arsenal player, particularly somebody who's feeling a little bit low right now, like Ramsdale, make a mistake that causes a real problem, right? Like I would like to see a legitimately well-made United goal if there's going to be a goal, or like I'd like to see like a fucking Bruno Fernandes free kick that you're just like, damn, that's like, what are you going to do, right?
You want moments of quality.
Moments of quality, but also like these are two interestingly the two narratives of these teams are really interesting right now. So I wouldn't want it to be like whoops on a couple because it just feels like that's insincere to what's happening with the two squads. I mean, there's also a third option, which is Rob Holding scores a hat trick. So
is that a third option?
Third option. Matt Turner scores a hat trick. Yeah.
Oh, is Matt Turner potentially going to start or no?
I mean, he would start if Ramsdale was out. I think that would be that'd be fucked up if he started, quite frankly. But
I would just love it. I'd love to see him play just as a United States fan to get to see him some serious games.
I mean, I do not know what the real plot is of the Matt Turner thing. I find it suspicious. I'm
very high on Turner, Ben. I'm like one of the higher. Okay. Yeah, I was a Revolution. I am a Revolution fan who doesn't watch Revolution matches anymore, but I saw him play a lot, and he at one point was the mathematical best goalie in MLS by like double-digit prevented goals, like to the second place guy.
We'll see if they taught him how to pass in the last 3 weeks.
I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it still feels like such an odd signing. I mean, it just feels like one of those. It feels like a signing designed to bridge the American gap for Arsenal into the market.
I would trade him for Dubravka and $20 million.
Okay, all right.
I also think he would, even if he had some of Dave De Gea's like same limitations, I still think he would outperform him over a season. So like, in a way, I think it's a little bratty of you to not appreciate the De Gea we have at home.
Yeah. I mean, I don't dislike Matt Turner, obviously. I haven't seen enough of him, but I think that just what Ramsdale does, his like weird secret sauce, is he can like get assists from the goalie's box. You know what I mean? Like the dude makes an out pass like with pinpoint accuracy.
You think that's going to work against our 5'9" center back? You think that's actually going to work? Take a long ball?
I don't think that that's like a reason why. I don't think that's like the defining factor, but it's like one of those things that like Ramsdale, other than making crazy saves and being like the most charismatic man in the world in the Premier League right now, he also just like he just stretches the defensive necessity of a team so dramatically, it's crazy. Like his highlights of these of like his passes from the box are insane.
Well, that is something that I can't speak to. I don't know what that looks like. But it's going to be, no matter what, we're all going to be watching it live, right? Like this is not one to miss. Also, it's at 8:30 a.m. and on the West Coast, so
I think it's 9:30 p.m.
8:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. kickoff on Sunday.
Oh, you're right.
All right.
Good thing I did this podcast. I would have missed the whole first half.
So we got to keep rolling. Apologies to you, Ben. This one's kind of a Jeff Schuyler specific one, although you're welcome to, of course, comment on it. But it's time to do the first ever official Meet the Soccers bet for El Meet the Soccerico. I know I think it's going to be a 1-1, but let's just say United win, Arsenal win are the conditions.
Okay.
If Arsenal wins, Jeff, state your terms.
Oh, man. This is hard. Are we betting money or like weird
money,
embarrassment?
It could be money. It could be something that we do together when we're in London. It could, like, because by the way, Jeff and I will be doing an in-person Meet the Soccers in just over a month's time.
Boom.
And this bet will be collected at that point.
We're both going to attend a game with each other. One of us, we will each be incognito in the other team's home section. So I will go to United Newcastle with Schuyler, and he will go to Man City Arsenal with me. I think the loser should have to, like, in full-throated singing voice, sing along with the home fans that they are pretending to be a part of for one song, one full song.
But I don't know the United song, so why would I know the Arsenal ones?
Well, we'll figure them out there. They're way easier to hear in person.
I thought you were going to say you have to wear an Arsenal kit, and my breath was like being held like, don't, I wouldn't do that to you. Don't. I'm just going to make
that's too much.
I think the loser has to try to start the choir of "You'll Never Walk Alone," regardless.
That's Liverpool.
I'm aware of
the
that.
Loser gets stabbed. That's pretty
so
harsh.
upset.
Man, I'm not going to agree to a bet where no matter what happens, one of us gets knifed. Like that's not a good bet. That's a super.
And what happens if Robinho scores the hat trick? That could technically happen in another dimension.
Oh man!
All right, Ben. This is why we were just going to do this one, just us. But all right, how about this, Jeff? How about this? United win. You and I are going to a strip club in London, and you are paying for a lap dance. And if Arsenal win, I will allow you to fill that in because I don't want anyone mad at you. So you don't have to. You don't have to. I will never make a stripper touch you. That will never happen.
Okay. Man.
I will. How about I get you guys like £100 bottle of wine?
I think I still want you to sing some Arsenal songs with my music.
All right, strip club Arsenal songs. That's fair, right?
That's a good bet.
And I know that it's I already kind of said it, but of course, Meet the Soccers will soon be coming to you from jolly old England. And it'll be great to. We may even just be on one camera. That'll be nuts. Schuyler and Jeff in the little red box.
Is there enough room? Look at that.
It'll be full screen, full bleed image
around the mic like the Wu-Tang Clan or the Temptations.
The Wu-Tang Clan?
What?
The Wu-Tang.
I think I said it correctly.
The Wu-Tang Clank?
The Wu-Tang Clang. That's when the Wu-Tang Clan is playing basketball poorly. It's clanging off
the rim.
In the house with all those bricks.
All right, Jeff.
I officially have nothing more to contribute, so I'm going to leave.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
No.
Anytime. Nothing brings me joy more than talking about the teams I love. So
Ben loves the
That would have been amazing if you had just logged off right after saying nothing brings me joy. Click.
Wow, it looks like someone's a United fan now.
Yeah.
Aw, his voice just died.
Oh.
All right, Jeff, give us a London update. I know Ben doesn't give a fuck about the fact that you live in London or is jealous.
He doesn't care. I'm moving across town next week. Looking forward to it. Should be my permanent home. Pretty pumped. And I don't know, just starting to get the feel of the place. Getting to feel like I know the place. Yeah, London's awesome. I'm going to see Buckingham Palace tomorrow.
You are? Does the royal family actively live there, or do they just cosplay there?
I think that the Queen is up in Scotland, and I'm not sure she's ever going to leave. There's a rumor going around that she wants to die in Scotland to try to unite the kingdom. But I also think that, like, basically she went to Scotland because she likes it better there, but now she's, like, too old to travel. So she won't be around. And I think the other royals, Kate and William, man, I know a lot of royal stuff just by being here, don't I? Kate and William, I think, have moved, like, out of, like, the center of London. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like a weird show house now. It's like a model home.
I see. It's like the Broadway equivalent of, like, the White House.
Maybe.
Have you been singing Lord Royals just every time you, like, pass by that area of town, or?
I've hummed it a little bit.
It's like, no, Jeff, that's tennis court. That's a different single. Is the like the newness or the coolness of just all of the British accents? Everyone's got, like, a different British accent. Like, has that worn off, or is it like, are you numb to it already, or?
Every time I get used to one, I find another. Like, I got Paramount Plus because there was this movie about monster wrestling that my daughter really wanted to watch, and so we had, like, family movie night tonight, and we watched that, and it was amazing. But it's called Rumble. It's actually, like, produced by the WWE. It was pretty good.
Do you see the Family That Fights one that they made?
Family That Fights.
It's like a story. It's like a movie about a family of wrestlers, and it's about. I think it's starring, like, the girl from Bumblebee, maybe.
Is that the one with the Big Show in it? Like the TV? There's, like, a Netflix series called The Big Show.
No, this is just a film. It's like Fighting with Family is what it's called.
Oh,
look it up. Look it up if you like average movies about wrestling.
I was gonna say, like Rumble, I'd say it's probably actually an average movie, but it was just so fun because my daughter loves it so much that it was like I got to enjoy it vicariously. But yeah, for you'd be like, oh, this is fine. But I loved it. I have started watching. Sorry, that was a long way around for me to say. I've started watching Geordie Shore.
Is that Jersey Shore, but they're from Newcastle?
Exactly. And those accents are pretty rough, man.
I'm gonna download that illegally very soon after I get off this podcast with you.
Go for it.
Wait, so if I can find it, can we have a Geordie Shore, like, conversation session on our next episode?
That would be amazing. When's the next international break? Can we do that for the international break podcast?
It'll be like recapping El Mito Sakarico and then Geordie Shore. Like, that's going to be our whole next pod.
Subscribe to our Patreon to get director's commentary from us on every Geordie Shore episode. They're all available for you to binge right now.
When those Twitch numbers start going up, a Patreon is definitely going to happen. We need the extra $20 a month.
Dude, I can use all the money and I can get. No, I'm just kidding. I'm financially stable, but I'll take it.
Wait. So what? Before your computer dies, what was our bet? It's I'm singing and you're buying me a lap dance.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rachel. It was funny. I had to do it.
It wasn't that funny.
It will be funny. It will be funny when you and I, in our mid-30s, go to a strip club. Yeah, let's
They're like, oh, is it your bachelor party or your birthday or something? We're like, no. We didn't know like you guys would be open this early. Thanks.
Yeah, we're the 10 a.m. strip club crowd.
Yeah, the C team.
All right. Jeffrey, I love you. Thank you for another transcendent episode.
Yes, love you too. See you.
Not best of luck Sunday.
May the best team win. May the team highest.
Meet the suckers. Meet the suckers. A soccer podcast that probably won't last. Meet the suckers. Meet the suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme. Meet the suckers and chat.